Before entering the story, please subscribe to the channel, like and share to help me. Thank you. The night wasn't safe. It was a battlefield the moment the sun disappeared. So did your power. There were no flashlights, no walls, no alarms, no second chances. The cave you called home was nothing more than a hollowed-out tomb. If the wrong creature stumbled upon you in the daylight, you had a fighting chance. You could run, you could see, but at night, the rules changed. You became prey. Our ancestors didn't go to sleep. They braced for it. They huddled close, backs to the wall, eyes flicking toward the cave entrance where shadows moved like ghosts. Every creak in the forest, every howl in the distance, sent a jolt of adrenaline through the group. Children whimpered, mothers whispered warnings. The strongest among them clutched a rock or a sharpened bone, not because it was effective, but because it was all they had. Lions, saber-toothed cats, giant bears. These weren't just stories, they were the neighbors. They didn't knock, they didn't stop quietly. They charged, and when they came, it wasn't to scare, it was to eat. Imagine trying to fall asleep knowing that any moment, death could walk into your cave. And here's the truth, you would have done the same thing they did. Sleep in shifts, one eye open, heart racing. Even rest itself became a luxury, stolen in fragments of half-sleep. There were no beds, no warmth except the dying fire. And fire didn't just light the cave, it invited attention. Predators could smell it, hear the crackle, feel the heat from a distance. If you kept it lit, you risked discovery. If you let it die, you froze. Every night was a negotiation between danger and discomfort. You didn't dream, you listened. You didn't turn over, you froze. You didn't sleep to rest. You slept because you had no choice. Welcome to the night before civilization. The battlefield wasn't war, it was the dark. Now, imagine a child, no older than 5, curled up beside their mother on a cold stone floor. She doesn't cry, she's learned not to. Crying attracts predators. Even children understood that silence could mean survival. Fear wasn't taught, it was inherited, passed down like a scar across generations. This fear didn't come from stories. It came from memories etched into the bloodline. The tribe remembered the last time a panther crept into a sleeping camp. They remember the screams, the torn remains, the silence afterward. So they adapted, but not by building cities or inventing weapons. Not yet. They adapted with behavioral defense. They formed human circles at night, elders on the outside, warriors closest to the entrance, children and mothers at the center, like rings of bark protecting the heart of a tree. Every movement during the night was subtle. No one stood up abruptly. No one made loud sounds. The slightest rustle could spark panic, and panic was deadly. A full-blown stampede in a dark cave? That killed more people than the predator itself. They learned to read the dark, to see with sound, to interpret the tone of a grunt, the rhythm of breath. They could sense danger through the smallest of shifts, the twitch of a sleeping face, the sudden quiet of the crickets outside. This wasn't paranoia, it was evolution. They weren't just surviving the night, they were sculpting the human brain. Every generation that managed to live one more sunrise passed down traits we still carry today: hypervigilance, light sleeping, night terrors, startle reflexes. Even now, in your bed, when you suddenly wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, breathing fast, with no memory of a dream, that's not insomnia, that's an ancestral echo. Your body is scanning for the growl outside the cave, because no matter how advanced we get, some part of us never left the dark. They say the world today is dangerous, but danger now is abstract. Data leaks, deadlines, debt. Back then, danger had teeth. Imagine a time where the concept of peaceful sleep didn't even exist. If your guard dropped for just one moment, your story ended, and there were no second drafts. Nature had no sympathy, only balance, and if you couldn't stay alert, if your tribe couldn't hold the line through the night, your genes didn't make it into the future. That's what's hauntingly beautiful and brutally honest about human evolution. You're not here because your ancestors were fearless. You're here because they were afraid, and they listened to that fear. The nighttime became a training ground, a filter. It separated the cautious from the careless, the bonded from the isolated. Those who watched over their tribe, who lit fire smartly, slept in patterns, built barriers of sticks and stones around their shelter. They survived, not by strength alone, but by strategy. That instinct lives in you. That tension you feel when your room is too quiet. That jolt when you hear a sudden noise in the night. It's not irrational. It's not weakness. It's your inheritance. Because the cave, the battlefield of darkness, didn't just shape our bones and brains. It shaped our behaviors, our families, our myths. The monsters under your bed, they were real once. They just had different names. And the fear of the dark, that wasn't childhood anxiety. It was ancient wisdom. They slept in fear because it was smarter than sleeping in peace. They feared the night because they respected it. And in doing so, they lived long enough to pass that fear all the way down to you. So the next time you lie in bed and feel a strange restlessness, the next time the silence feels too loud, just know your body remembers something your mind forgot. Why caveman sleep was a survival strategy. You've probably heard that sleep is when the body heals. But to a caveman, sleep wasn't about healing. It was about not dying. Everything they did at night, every twitch, every movement, every rule, had one purpose: survival. Sleep had to evolve into a strategy, not a luxury, and nature responded by reshaping the human brain itself. Scientists today have studied something called sentinel behavior. It's common in animals that sleep in groups. One member stays awake, alert, scanning the environment while others sleep. Turns out, humans did the same and may still do it. Research shows that when people sleep in unfamiliar environments, like a hotel room or a campsite, half their brain stays more active. It's called the first night effect. One half of your brain literally stands guard while the other tries to rest. That's not a bug in the system. That's a survival adaptation wired into us from the caves. Cavemen didn't sleep in isolation. They couldn't afford to. They created rotational sleep patterns. Sentries who stayed awake while others rested, constantly rotating, always overlapping. There was never a time when the whole tribe was unconscious. Someone always had an ear to the wind, and even those asleep weren't fully asleep. They rested in light sleep cycles, ready to jolt awake at the snap of a twig. We call this hypervigilance today. Back then, it was the reason you got to see the sunrise. And here's the twist. We've inherited that same wiring, except now we call it trouble falling asleep, restless nights, feeling tired even after 8 hours. It's not always stress. It's not always caffeine. Sometimes it's your inner sentinel, a part of your ancient brain whispering, don't sleep too deep. The world is still dangerous. Let's talk about insomnia, one of the most common modern afflictions. People try to fix it with white noise, melatonin, blackout curtains, sleep apps. But what if insomnia isn't a malfunction, but a message? To understand that, you have to go back, far back, to a time when sleep was never silent rain, when insects, predators. The darkness was alive, and so was your brain. Sleep had to be shallow, because deep sleep meant vulnerability. So the mind evolved to create a rhythm, dozing off, snapping awake, drifting, listening, checking, repeating. And here's the wild part. You still do it. Most people wake up multiple times throughout the night. They don't always remember it, but their body does. It's your biology running ancient protocols. Your ancestors didn't have clocks. They had instincts. When they rolled over and looked toward the cave entrance, they weren't checking the time. They were scanning for movement. When a sound broke the silence, their heart rate surged, fight or flight activated. Even in sleep, their bodies were preparing to defend, run, or protect their children. Modern humans, in contrast, feel betrayed by their own restlessness, but in truth, it's the same evolutionary reflex, only now, instead of reacting to a growl in the bushes, it reacts to a buzzing phone, a slamming door, or even just a gut feeling that something's off. Your sleep isn't broken, it's just ancient. And think about dreams, those chaotic, emotional, vivid images that sometimes feel more real than waking life. For cavemen, dreams might have served a purpose, running simulations of danger, testing reactions, playing out scenarios to sharpen instincts. Nightmares weren't just bad dreams, they were survival drills. Today, we call it anxiety. Back then, it was called awareness. You don't just fall asleep and turn off. You descend into a state of high alert consciousness disguised as rest, because the body may lie still, but the mind is always watching. Now picture this. The tribe is asleep, scattered bodies wrapped in animal skins, the fire low, embers pulsing orange in the dark. One man stirs. His eyes are open, unmoving. He's not dreaming. He's listening. This man is the protector tonight. His job isn't to sleep. It's to ensure that others can. This wasn't assigned by rank. It wasn't a job title. It was a shared, unwritten contract. You guard tonight. I guard tomorrow. This rotating system of light sleepers, naturally vigilant members, and overlapping wake cycles created one of the first cooperative sleep systems in human history. And over thousands of years, this pattern became embedded in our biology, To this day, some people are naturally early risers, others stay up late. Science calls them chronotypes, but evolution called them the night guards and the dawn watchers. It wasn't by accident. It was strategic distribution of awareness. Nature made sure someone was always awake. You see this today in families. One parent becomes hyper-tuned after having a baby. They wake at the smallest whimper. They fall asleep faster, but sleep louder. They're not broken. They're doing what cavemen did. They're running the ancestral algorithm. Even dogs, domesticated descendants of wolves, show similar sleep patterns in packs. One's always awake, one ear always perked. The logic hasn't changed because the world, in many ways, still hasn't. That's why modern sleep research is starting to challenge the 8-hour rule, because for most of human history, sleep was broken into phases, segmented rest with long periods of wakefulness in between. People would sleep a few hours, wake up, tend the fire, check the perimeter, pray, talk quietly, then go back to sleep. This wasn't insomnia. It was rhythmic vigilance. The body responded to its ancient truth. Night was never safe enough to truly surrender, and so we didn't. We trained ourselves to sleep strategically, not peacefully. And even now, thousands of years later, we still haven't fully unlearned it. Fire, fear, and the illusion of safety. Fire changed everything. It didn't just cook food. It didn't just provide warmth. It was the first illusion of control. To a caveman, fire was power incarnate. The crackle of flame meant hope, defense, visibility, and for a moment, a fragile sense of safety. But make no mistake, it was an illusion. Fire lit the cave, yes, but it also painted your position on the map. A glowing signal in the pitch-black wilderness that said, food is here, life is here, come if you dare. Predators learned quickly. They knew what fire meant. They could smell the smoke from miles away. Some feared it, others circled it, but none ignored it. You didn't just build a fire, you calculated it. How bright should it burn? Where should the smoke travel? Will it block the cave entrance or light up our silhouettes from the inside? The line between comfort and catastrophe was razor thin. This is where fear became a tool, not a weakness. The tribe didn't just sleep next to fire. They watched it, guarded it, fed it with intention. A fire left unattended could kill just as easily as a predator. It could attract wolves, dry out the air, spark embers that lit the very cave ablaze. And still, they needed it, because the alternative was worse. Complete darkness meant sensory death. No light to see movement, no glow to track danger. In total black, the imagination became a weapon and panic became contagious. So fire became the ultimate paradox. Too much and you exposed yourself. Too little and you disappeared. It was the first balancing act of human survival, visibility versus vulnerability. And night after night, our ancestors learned to manage fear like fire, never extinguished, never uncontrolled, just enough to keep the shadows at bay, but safety that was never real, just warm enough to make you believe until something stepped into the light. A fire didn't mean you were safe. It meant you had a fighting chance, and so cavemen layered their defenses. Fire was just the beginning. They built barriers at cave entrances, thickets of thorn branches, sharpened sticks angled outward, piles of stones to trip or slow an attacker. Nothing was guaranteed to stop a predator, but it might delay it. And in those few seconds of hesitation, someone might grab a weapon, someone might sound the alarm. But here's the truth that echoes through time. There was no such thing as full safety, only the illusion of it. Even within the stone walls of a cave, fear seeped through the cracks. You'd hear stories passed down of entire groups wiped out in the night. The smell of blood, the silence after the screams, the terrifying realization that sometimes no preparation was enough. That's why the most valuable survival skill wasn't brute strength. It was awareness, a sixth sense, a hyper-awareness that could read the wind, sense the change in animal calls, detect the absence of normal sounds. Fire gave light, yes, but the tribe still posted watchers, still clutched their clubs while pretending to rest, still kept the children closest to the center. Because one mistake, one out of false confidence, and it was over. That's where modern humans get it wrong. We think of fear as the enemy, something to fix, suppress, medicate, but our ancestors saw it as a companion, a whisper that said, stay ready, a signal that reminded you, you're alive, but you're not alone out here. Even today, that fire still burns in us. It's just been covered by walls, screens, schedules. But beneath the soft mattress, under the blinking router lights and digital calm, there's a flicker, attention to memory, the body knows the truth. Safety is temporary, preparedness is permanent. And fire is just a promise we make to ourselves. I'm watching. I'm aware. I'll survive tonight. In the flickering glow of the fire, shadows dance across the cave walls, some from branches outside, others from movement inside. You never really knew. The fire didn't just scare off predators. It revealed yourself, your fears, your instincts, your readiness, or your weakness, and this was perhaps the most dangerous illusion of all. That light alone could protect you, but light only showed what was already there. It didn't stop it. It didn't fight for you. It simply gave you a few more seconds to act. That's why early humans didn't just sleep around fire, they slept in formation. The strongest, most alert, most experienced warriors took the edges. The mothers and children slept at the center, surrounded by layers of trust. It wasn't random. It wasn't casual. It was tactical tribal positioning, and if you woke up at night, gasping, sweating, unsure why, you didn't ask questions. You scanned. You listened. You checked the fire. You looked at the man beside you. Was he breathing? Was he gripping his weapon tighter? You didn't need language. Just eyes, just instinct. This coordination wasn't taught at school. It was inherited behavior. The same way birds know how to migrate, we knew how to survive the dark together. And this brings us to one of the most powerful truths about prehistoric life. Fear built unity. You didn't survive alone. You couldn't. The illusion of safety came from proximity, from trust, from the understanding that if something came through that cave entrance, you weren't the only one ready to fight. The fire didn't burn alone. Neither did the people. Today, we've replaced that circle of fire with alarm systems, locked doors, city lights. But deep down, our nervous system still remembers the ritual, still aches for connection, still fears the dark, still watches the flickering light, even if it's now a screen. Because whether it's flame or phone, we stare into it for the same reason, to forget how exposed we truly are. You still sleep in fear. You've just forgotten why it's 4:47 a.m. You're awake again, no sound, no danger, no explanation. Your heart beats just a little too fast. You roll over, you check your phone, you tell yourself it's stress, maybe caffeine, maybe nothing. But what if it's something older? What if it's a whisper from the bloodline, a signal passed down from the caves? Because while your walls are painted, your floors carpeted, your fridge stocked, your nervous system doesn't know that. Your biology still thinks you're lying in a cave. It still thinks the fire might go out. It still thinks the growl outside is real. And every so often, it wakes you up to check. You didn't outgrow the fear. You just buried it. See, evolution doesn't erase, it layers. It adds software on top of hardware that's been running for 100,000 years. So now, instead of predators, your brain scans for emails. Instead of tracking wolves, you track Instagram, likes, but your body still reacts the same way. The stress, the anxiety, the shallow breath. Your modern problems speak the same language as ancient ones. You lie awake at night not because you're weak, but because some part of you is still on guard. You inherited the nervous system of a hunter, a tribe sentinel, a light sleeper with sharp ears and a mind that never fully powers down. So that 3 a.m. wake up, that flash of dread, that feeling like something's off, it's not just modern stress. It's the echo of 10,000 nights spent watching shadows move across stone. It's the ghost of ancestors who survived by being the first to wake when something wasn't right. And now, you're carrying that torch. Your ancestors didn't die in their sleep. They survived because they didn't sleep too deep, and your body remembers. So you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. Everything's quiet, but something inside you is not. You try counting breaths, slowing your heart rate, playing calm music, and sometimes it works. But other nights, no matter how peaceful the room feels, your body stays wired, restless, alert, on edge. That's not failure. That's your internal sentinel doing its job. You see, we evolved in a world that never truly shut down. Danger could come at any moment, even from your own kind. Tribal betrayal, rival clans, nature's sudden wrath. So the brain built a system of layered defenses, conscious fear, subconscious pattern recognition, and then unconscious surveillance. That means even while you sleep, your brain continues monitoring the environment. Noise levels, room temperature, light shifts, the rhythm of someone else's breathing next to you. You think you're asleep, but your ancestors would have called that guard duty. And now, thousands of years later, those same systems are misfiring in modern life, not because they're broken, but because they're over-adapted. A phone buzz, a blue light, an unanswered text. Your brain can't tell the difference between a social threat and a stalking predator. Your body reacts the same way: adrenaline, tension, alertness. Even the city, with all its bright lights, constant noise, distant sirens, creates the perfect storm of subconscious alarms. And your system, designed to rest in darkness and silence, never truly powers down. That's why we struggle to sleep deeply. Why we wake with clenched jaws, tight shoulders, shallow breaths, not because we're soft, not because we're broken, but because the ancient guard inside us never actually stood down. It kept watch, it adapted, and it made sure you lived long enough to inherit the same restlessness it once depended on to survive. You're not broken, you're remembering. Your bed may be soft, your door may be locked, but your DNA still sleeps in the cave. The truth is, we never stopped sleeping in fear. We just started calling it something else: anxiety, insomnia, restlessness. But deep down, it's the same primal vigilance that kept our ancestors alive. Think about it. Why do we check the door twice before bed? Why do we feel exposed without a blanket, even in a warm room? Why do we need background noise to fall asleep? Because somewhere in us, we still feel the cave's silence, and we don't trust it. Even nightmares, those chaotic, terrifying dreams, aren't random. They serve a purpose. They test our reactions. They prepare us for confrontation, confusion, danger. Just like our ancestors rehearsed survival in their dreams, we rehearse stress. Because part of us still believes the enemy is real. And maybe, in a way, it is. Not a predator with claws, but a world that's constantly on. A society that rewards exhaustion and punishes rest. A culture that tells you sleep is lazy and constant productivity is noble. But the body doesn't forget the contract it made with the night. It knows that rest is not weakness. It's a strategy. And fear isn't dysfunction. It's intuition. So the next time you lie awake, don't just fight it. Understand it. That thump in your chest, that racing thought, that urge to scan the room, it's not your mind betraying you. It's your biology protecting you, trying, in its own way, to make sure you wake up tomorrow. You come from a bloodline that didn't sleep easy, a lineage that survived because it respected the dark. And tonight, you carry that legacy, not just in your dreams, but in every flicker of awareness that keeps your heart beating through the silence. The fear didn't leave us, it became us. You sleep in a bed, not on the ground. You have locks, curtains, thermostats, but you're still wired like the hunter who slept with one eye open. And maybe that's okay, because fear was never your enemy, it was your teacher. It kept your people alive when the world was unforgiving and silent. And tonight, even in your comfort, it's still doing its job. So the next time you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., staring into the dark, don't panic. Don't shame yourself for it. Instead, thank the part of you that refuses to fall asleep until it knows you're safe. That ancient whisper that says, not yet, just one more check. It's not dysfunction, it's defense, it's DNA. And if you listen closely, you'll realize you're not weak. You're just deeply, beautifully human. If this awakens something inside you, share it. Let someone else know they're not broken either. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, what keeps you awake at night? And what are you finally ready to understand about it? Because the fire may be gone, but we're still watching the dark together.